Coming up on Network Africa, 16 people now killed in Uganda as a result of opposition leader Bobi Wine's arrest. Ethiopia's government says it's moved into Tigray's capital in an escalation of the conflict in that region. Plus, whistleblowing Zimbabwe journalist Hopewell Chiono granted bail following his arrest over a fortnight ago. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. Authorities in Uganda say 16 people have been killed in army and police operations to quell protests that broke out over the arrest of presidential candidate and pop star Bobi Wine. Youths have been burning tires and blockading streets in the capital Kampala and other towns to demand Wine's release. Chaotic scenes filmed by workers nearby showed smoke rising from the city as motorcyclists and burning piles fill the streets. Police say 350 people have been arrested so far in the clashes. Spontaneous protests erupted in reaction to Bobi Wine, who was detained on Wednesday after authorities accused him of violating anti-coronavirus measures by holding mass rallies. He has amassed a large following amongst Uganda's youth, attracted by his bold criticism of the government, often in his song lyrics. Now, Somalia's Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble has sacked his Foreign Affairs Minister Ahmed Awad hours after a row over the country's position on the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region. In a decree issued by the office of the Somali Prime Minister, Mohamed Abubakar has been appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs to replace the former holder of this position. The sacked minister was named as an ambassador, but he tweeted that he was not currently ready for any position as an ambassador or any other thing. The verified Twitter account of the Office of the Prime Minister at Somali PM announced the appointment, but did not explain why Mr. Awad was sacked. On Thursday, Mr. Awad posted a tweet on his account denying that Somalia had issued an official statement on the crisis in Ethiopia. In the meantime, the United Nations is responding to allegations that the World Health Organization chief, Tedros Ghebreyesus, is illegally backing the Tigray region forces in the Ethiopian conflict. Spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stefan Dujarric, says the UN has the utmost respect for Dr. Tedros, who is an exemplary international civil servant. Providing an update on the conflict, Dujarric also called on all the parties to the conflict in Ethiopia to allow for immediate free, safe and unhindered humanitarian access.
The Secretary General has the utmost respect for Dr. Tedros, who is an exemplary international civil servant. We've all seen the work that he's been doing leading WHO. He's guided it through a number of emergencies, Ebola, COVID, obviously unprecedented emergencies, and he's always focused first and foremost on the urgent need to strengthen global public health for all. We obviously urgently call on all the parties to the conflict to allow for immediate, free, safe, and unhindered humanitarian access. Electricity continues to be cut off. Fuel for generators has run out. That leaves 96,000 Eritrean refugees in Ethiopia without clean water. UNHCR says that more than 31,000 people have crossed into Sudan. And just to flag that a humanitarian preparedness plan is targeting nearly 2 million people has been finalized. The plan seeks $75 million to help people affected by the conflict in Tigray, Afar, and Amhara regions of Ethiopia until January of 2021.
Meanwhile, Ethiopian government says it is bearing down on the capital of Tigray region in this two-week-old conflict. The chief executive of the Provisional Administration for Tigray National Regional State, Dr. Mulu Nega, says their task is very definite: to plan new local elections to restore peace to the region once TPLF leaders were ousted.
We are not to stay there for 4 years. Our task is very definite: to make the transition very smooth. In the first place, as I mentioned, our main task is to ensure transparent, objective, democratic, participatory, and trustful election in the region. Then after that, we'll hand over to the regional government elected by the people.
Humanitarian support reached to areas which are now being controlled by TPLF. Basically, we are planning to have two routes. One, in areas which are actually now unfettered, which are free, those areas could be handled by the government, basically, and then with the support of other partners. In areas which are not free yet, or going to be free, then there has to be a safer corridor whereby UN agencies and other partners could supply humanitarian items like food and drugs.
Now, away from Ethiopia, the acting United Nations Libya envoy has asked the Security Council to blacklist anyone who obstructs peace efforts in Libya. This comes after the warring parties agreed a ceasefire and Libyan participants in political talks set a date for elections. The 15-member Security Council is able to impose an asset freeze or travel ban on individuals or entities. Last month, the two major sides in Libya's war, the internationally recognized Government of National Accord and Khalifa Haftar's eastern-based Libyan National Army, agreed a ceasefire, and the participants in political talks last week set 24th of December 2021 as the date for elections.
Have stood up and did their part. We owe it to them to do ours by fully respecting and supporting these Libyan agreements, which were reached under the authority of Resolution 2510 and the outcomes of the Berlin Conference. This includes respect for the principle of non-interference in Libya's internal affairs and full implementation of the UN arms embargo on Libya. This council has tools at its disposal, including to prevent obstructionists from jeopardizing this rare opportunity to restore peace in Libya. I call on you to use them. Allow me to reiterate that the situation remains volatile. There is no time for complacency. While the Joint Military Commission seeks to operationalize the ceasefire agreement, the two sides have not yet begun to withdraw their forces. Libyans deserve, if not the support, then at least the non-interference of the main international actors as they seek to forge a sovereign political path forward for future Libyan generations.
Citizens in Burkina Faso head to the polls on Sunday, November 22nd, to vote in presidential and legislative elections amid worsening violence because of an Islamist insurgency that has rendered large parts of the north and center ungovernable. Now, this is 5 years after President Roch Kabore was elected, and according to the United Nations, more than 1 million people have been displaced by the violence. However, candidates vying for the presidential seat of power are promising to bring back peace. There are 12 candidates standing for Burkina Faso's election, and all of them have put peace and security at the heart of their message. Incumbent President Roch Kabore, who was elected in 2015, vows to prioritize regaining stability and to do all it takes to kick out terrorism in the country.
I am here in Zenia to make you the promise that in the next 5 years, Burkina Faso will regain stability so that people will be able to live in peace. That is our priority. We will do everything we can to kick terrorism out of the country. The displaced will be able to return to their villages and peacefully restart their agricultural activities in joy and in health.
Kabore's main challenger is Eddie Komboigo. He's the leader of the former ruling party, the Congress for Democracy and Progress Party. He was banned from running in the 2015 election because of his political association with former President Blaise Compaoré.
To tell the truth to those who are currently governing, tell the truth to those who have plunged us in misery. The time has come to end this puppet governance. The time has come to take our responsibilities and bring Burkina Faso into the kind of development that takes account of the core population.
Campaigning for the UN for Progress and Reform UPC party is Zephyrin Diabre, promising to raise the minimum wage and restore the country's health and education system. Diabre was a runner-up in the last election.
We know what worries you. It is a problem of health. The education of your children worries you, and we will fight to deal with this. Salaries are not sufficient. We will raise them. What we call the minimum salary is 30,000 and 35,000 francs. We will raise it to 50,000 so that you can tend to your families and protect them.
Thousands of voters will be unable to vote in this election because of the violence. And according to the president of the Electoral Commission, he says 15 districts are too dangerous to set up polling stations and 860 villages are inaccessible. The violence, worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic this year, has led to a major deterioration of the economy, loss of income for the rural populations, and no schooling for hundreds of thousands of displaced children. The Anti-Corruption Commission in Sierra Leone says it is considering issuing an arrest warrant against the country's former president, Ernest Bai Koroma, after he failed to comply with its summons. His lawyers said it hadn't been safe for him to travel from his home in the north to the capital, Freetown. Now, the commission wants to quiz Mr. Koroma after an inquiry concluded that corruption during his 11-year presidency took the country to the brink of economic collapse. Mr. Koroma is barred from leaving the country but denies any wrongdoing. Last month, investigators blamed his supporters for physically preventing them from questioning him at his home. Well, a senior member of an Egyptian rights group has been arrested days after two of his colleagues were detained. The Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights, EIPR, said that its executive director, Gasser Abdel Razek, was arrested at his home in Madi, south of the capital, Cairo, and was taken to an unknown location. The group's office manager, Mohamed Bashir, was arrested on Sunday, while the director of criminal justice, Karim Enara, was arrested on Wednesday. Now, senior EU diplomats had visited EIPR on the 3rd of November for a briefing on the human rights situation. And there has been growing international criticism, with the US expressing concern earlier over the first two detentions. Still ahead on Network Africa. Our Africa Tech segment showcases a budding Nigerian solar inventor. We'll have more details after the break. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The Zimbabwe High Court has granted bail to freelance journalist Hopewell Chiono following his arrest over a fortnight ago over a tweet. Now, it's the second time the prominent government critic has been arrested this year, and his arrest sparked an outcry from Western embassies and human rights groups. Amnesty International described it as the latest tactic to target and harass critical voices through the misuse of the criminal justice system. Mr. Chiono, who has spent just over 2 weeks in jail at the maximum security prison, was arrested over a social media post in which he suggested that he had been tipped off that a prominent woman charged with gold smuggling would be released on bail. He was charged with obstructing justice. Now his bail conditions bar him from using social media to obstruct justice. Well, joining us now is Nigel Yamutumbu, a Zimbabwean journalist, for more on this story. Hello, Nigel, and thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa. What more can you tell us about the events leading up to this time, him being granted bail?
Always a pleasure being here. Well, the case in which Hopo Chingono is being charged for obstructing the course of justice rages on amid a High Court ruling today granting him bail, but also ruling that he has a case to answer and therefore should continue to be on remand. What it effectively means is that Chingono, who already is facing a charge of inciting public violence,
Now, what has been the reaction to these latest developments?
Within the media sector, are welcoming that at least he is out of prison, but continue to reiterate that journalism is not a crime, that he should not be even on remand. He should not have been arrested in the first case because if you look at both charges, that of inciting public violence and that of obstructing the course of justice, both in essence are frivolous, both in essence are political, and both in essence have to do with the criminalization of expression and criminalization of journalistic privileges, including that of protection of journalistic sources, and also including of widely sharing information.
Now, Nigel, just before I let you go, his bail condition is barring him from using social media. Is this something he'll be able to do, being that his social media posts, have attracted a huge following?
To be honest, is really impractical. It's like a bail condition to say, go, but do not speak. How is that possible? Go, we are releasing you, but do not drink water. Because essentially the right to communicate, it's an inherent right. You cannot really, yes, it's not absolute and all those other phantom arguments, but at the end of the day, it is a right that is tied to the exercise of the right to life itself.
Indeed. We would just like to thank you so much, Nigel Yamutumbu, there joining us from Harare, Zimbabwean journalist. Well, the UN mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, has begun a major road rehabilitation project in the country. 3,200 kilometers of road is expected to be repaired in the coming months. Now, when South Sudan won independence almost a decade ago, it inherited an infrastructure devastated by civil war. Now, government buildings, power and water supplies, as well as roads, were destroyed. The country's climate hasn't helped the process of rebuilding in the wake of a peace deal. Heavy floods often leave roads impassable during the long rainy season, freezing travel, trade, and efforts to build peace.
For that reason, we now have 7 engineering contingents of about nearly 200 people in each, from Bangladesh, China, Korea, Thailand, India, and Pakistan, who are beginning to a major road rehabilitation project during the dry season, like we have in previous years with WFP, and WFP will be working with us on this one as well. I believe that this work makes a huge difference to people's lives. It provides access to services, it increases trade between areas, which brings down the cost of goods in the markets, and it all contributes to economic growth, which again creates jobs. Through roads, peoples from different communities can communicate with each other, and by communication, they can build trust and deter conflict.
Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. 19-year-old God's Delight Jude of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, is trailing the blaze in the electronic industry with a specialization in coding and production of panel board for inverters. Coming from a background of technicians, the UNN graduate has been trying his hands on effective inverters to complement the nation's power supply. Take a look.
God's Delight Jude is a 200-level electronics engineering student of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. When he's not in school, he's in Jos learning from his father the practical aspect of his course, designing and producing inverters for sale. God's Delight says he first picked interest in electronics when he was in secondary school. Building on his curiosity, at the age of 17, he could already draw diagrams, print and design circuit boards. At 19 years and in the university, he finds himself on the same path, specializing in PCB, which means print on circuit board.
There were a few projects my dad did that really caught my interest, like the inverter for one. I saw how capable and efficient the inverter was and I picked interest in it. And sometimes I just look at him when he designs on the computer and I'm fascinated from how you take a design from the computer and how you make it into an inverter. So those things, those big things really motivated me and piqued my interest and pushed me towards practicing it myself.
With different kinds of solar inverters made readily available in the market, what makes your inverter stand out?
Inverters firstly have protection. When you, for instance, accidentally in the house, two wires bridge, wrong connection, and you have a short circuit, normal inverters will go boom, like they will bridge and get spoiled. Well, our inverter is smart enough to notice that short circuit and off itself.
With 70% of the materials used in production sourced locally in Nigeria and the remaining 30%, which are more of programmables, imported either from China or neighboring countries in Africa, God's Delight, like every other innovator, seeks an enabling environment to thrive. He highlights some of the hiccups he faces with his team.
We had to improvise with some of our equipment. We designed some of the equipment ourselves, and the equipment generally reduces our production rates. It hinders us from mass producing.
The young techpreneur says his dad has played a major role in the acquisition of his skills by practically engaging him and giving him access to equipment for use.
We're working on an inverter that you can use your phone and study the parameters of the inverter. You can use your phone and monitor the inverter. Even when you're at your workplace, you're monitoring the inverter with your phone. If the inverter has an issue, to locate where the issue is and send it to your phone. So from your phone, you can see the issue. If possible, you can rectify it with your phone without calling someone else.
God's Delight says although they currently lack the key equipment needed for mass production, he says he looks forward to making solar energy affordable for every household in Nigeria.
That's where we end the program for today and the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adigoke. Have a wonderful weekend.